happened. We are live on YouTube. We live stream all of our recordings.
Yeah.
The audio version will be like clean and sharp and super polished, but this is just as it happens.
Yeah,
So-
and that's live now. We like to spring it on our guests.
Yeah, we don't let them know when it's happening.
I would have told my family otherwise.
Yes, just shoot a message now.
Wow, that's a note for us.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, maybe we should tell someone we're going live.
Yeah. Hey,
All right.
Dan, thanks for joining Country Creatives.
Yes.
We've only just met, and I know little to nothing about what you do and who you are. But Caleb has introduced us.
Yeah, Dan, mate, I'm so glad you're on this podcast. I remember saying, hey, I reckon you should tell some of these stories on the podcast. And you're like, oh, yeah, should I?
But what does he do,
But you're here.
Caleb? What does he do?
Dan,
I don't know.
wow, film industry Dan, we're going to call you.
Okay.
Dan, I'll let you tell your own story, but for listeners at home, for Tracy at home, it's offline chat, inside joke, you have, pause.
That's when you put the edit in, right?
Yeah, that's that's
Yeah,
right.
not on the live stream, no.
Dan is a film industry professional from way back, but I'll let you fill the audience in as to how you got there, what you're doing now in your little interim, and then we're going to tell some stories. And I've worded you up, Dan, to dig into the depths and the archives, to give us a bit of insight into the film industry, and tell a few BTS stories. Does everyone know what BTS means?
Behind the scenes.
Ah.
All right. Well, yeah, what do you do, Dan?
Okay, so I am in the camera department in the film and television industry. I have been probably just shy of 20 years. I have done most of the roles in the camera department. So you starting from your trainee all the way up to, for the longest time, focus puller. Or
Focus puller.
Focus
Oh,
puller.
very niche
Yeah.
camera operation role.
yeah,
Okay.
otherwise known as the first camera assistant.
Nice.
Okay.
Which is the step below the camera operator.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time in film and television, especially drama, and you have your camera operator, but then you have an assistant who will build the camera, change the lenses, and keep the actors in focus. You might have heard another position, which is the step below mine, which is the clapper loader. Or the
So say again.
yeah, clapper loader.
Love it.
Yeah,
Clapper
so
loader.
Everyone knows the slate.
The little
the little
action.
which is being called a slate, a clapper. But then the loader part goes back to when we shot on film, and they would also be responsible for going into the dark room or going into a dark tent just for their hands, to change the film, the 16mm film or the 35mm film that we shot on. So they would load the film, put it in the canisters, bring it to set, and then the focus puller or the first assistant camera would load it into the camera, and away we would go, and the operator would operate. That's
Love
all
it.
they would do. And those division of roles have been around for a very long time, and so and it creates this stepping ladder for people to go up the career trajectory, because
Yeah.
you move away from being a technician to more creatives as you get to
And
a
higher
camera
up,
operator, cinematographer,
so camera operator, and what's up above? Because I've
Yeah,
heard the word
cinematographer.
director of photography.
or director of photography. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're the people, they operate and have creative kind of license in how it's shot. Is that right?
Yeah. So a director of photography is usually in charge of the overall image. So they will work directly with the director.
Yep.
And bring their vision to life visually. So you're talking about camera movement, lighting, and
Focus.
anything to do with that. That's their responsibility in conjunction with your
Art
your
department.
art directors and your or everything visual generally. So yeah, that's kind of where they are.
Crazy. So,
So yeah, that's where I sit.
yeah, right. So tell us a little bit about, let's go back to the start. How did you get into camera department, working in the film industry. Tell us, how did you enter the film industry, film and TV?
It depends on what part, because I took an interest of it very young. My mum always tells me the story of using the handy cam
Yeah.
at home, and I would make little movies with my two younger sisters, and there's that usual kind of like
Being obsessed with it and having fun.
Yeah. I was born with a camera in my hand.
Yeah.
Well, not really, but and I enjoyed it through school, high school, and I was from a small country town in Western Australia. We had a pretty good media program, which I think for a country school. But from that, I thought I needed to go to university. I had to move to Perth to go to university, but it was interesting because I had someone say, "Oh, well, if you want to get into film or TV, you don't really need a degree. You can go to TAFE, and it's way more hands-on. You'll have a lot more fun." So yeah, I took that step and I went to TAFE in Perth, and that was awesome. And so that was very hands-on. I just got used to, you just use equipment and stuff like that. But what the big key was, and I think since then, I think a lot of schools have come around to getting as many mentors involved as possible. And a part of this TAFE course, which was kind of unique at the time, was they had mentors come in and teach you.
Cool.
And so, we had producing mentors, we had an editor mentor, and we had a couple of camera mentors. But I met, and this is a bit of jargon, I guess, but a gripping mentor. Now,
Tell everyone what a grip is.
The grip department on a film is in charge of whatever the camera sits on, and it's a lot of whatever the camera moves. So dollies and tracks, but also not to downplay their role, but a lot of the time they can be the general labourer on set. So if big things need to be moved, or things that need to be like put together, and like
they shift it all
shift
around and they set it
everything.
up where it goes.
Yeah,
A gripper. They grip the things and they move them, and then they
grip and
release
move.
their grip.
Yeah. They're a very important department, especially to a camera department. Like if you have a strong grip department, it makes strong grip. You like that? Yeah.
The cool thing, the thing it reminds me of is the line from Tropic Thunder, where is it Tom Hanks' character yells through the light, zoom.
Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
Tom Hanks.
yeah.
Tom Cruise's character yells. He said, "Where's the grip?"
Yeah.
He's the guy with the big fist.
See that guy there? Hit him as hard as you can.
Yes.
And there's so much truth to that.
They're the muscly people.
They're the muscle.
Yeah.
But they're very, can be very, they're very hands-on. They can be,
very clever.
Very, very clever.
Yeah. And so what led you away from gripping and into camera operating?
Let's go. Back to TAFE.
So I made really good friends with my gripping mentor, and I had him heavily involved in my final film, which meant I had these beautiful shots. I had a crane shot in my film, shooting on 16 mil, and it was one of those old ride-on cranes where the operator would sit on a seat. You'd have a safety belt. You'd have the camera, and you'd have your focus puller next to you, and you would go up on that crane. A lot of it's all remote heads now, and well, most of it is.
Sounds less fun.
It was less fun. But through that, my opportunities started to open up. He gave me opportunities to work with him in sport, where we would set the cameras up for the rugby over in Perth. And then he gave me the entry to my first feature to work on. I came on as a trainee, camera trainee.
What was that film?
It was called Two Fists, One Heart.
Nice.
And it was a boxing movie directed by Sean Seat. It was overwhelming, full on. It was a big It was a big film to come to Perth back then. I think it was
An Australian film or
Australian film. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was. Yeah, you will learn more, on a week
Yeah.
on set
Yeah.
than you
Yeah.
work for, 2.5 years I'd spent even at TAFE.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
what do you remember? What do you remember as a moment when you're going, oh shit, what am I doing here? Like, do you remember moments like that from your first gig, or just those early
A lot of
days?
it's a blur. I remember getting confused with equipment names.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one because I was the attachment. A lot of the time, the trainee and the attachment, especially in the Australian industry, you are in charge of the video playback.
Oh yeah.
So pretty much setting up the monitors for the director or the script supervisor to watch.
See what the camera's
And-
saying.
yeah,
What replay the
and
takes.
We shot. This is digital is just coming around. Then this is the Panasonic Genesis. Oh, is it a Panasonic? Yeah. So it was all digital. So it was all kind of new, but we were still recording onto these little clamshell mini DV
Yeah.
recorders,
Yeah.
which were pretty much, you can imagine a clamshell that opens up and the monitor is on one side and then these little recording devices at the bottom,
Wow.
and it ran through the monitors and the monitors ran out to the cameras.
Whoa.
So I was
Through
recording.
cable?
Yeah, through cable. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think we even had transmitters. So we
Yeah.
were transmitting back then. So that was another, it was really like, all the technology was super new.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember it being very overwhelming and so I remember recording on DVs and you would keep the mini DVs, but if they wanted to see something, say like, oh, can I see something from 3 days ago? Oh, I had to go through these little mini DVs and line them up.
Oh yeah.
But meanwhile, I'm meant to be running around helping the other camera assistants. It's 2 cameras. And I had a pretty pushy A camera second AC who, wasn't the nicest bloke all the time.
Uh-huh.
And here's your first story. He pulled me aside about 3 weeks into it, and he's like, I'm the trainer. It's the first time I've been on set. This
Yeah.
is the thing. And he goes, look, I've had a chat. You're not doing too well, mate. Like, you really have to pull up your socks and you have to start concentrating. You have to, like, that was a serious chat.
Yeah.
Or we're going to have to let you go. Far out. Like,
Oh,
it
yeah, stress.
blew my mind. I
Oh.
thought I was trying so hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm not going to say, like, 20 years ago, this is kind of representative, like, a little bit how toxic this
Yeah.
industry used to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so yeah, head down. I was just like, all right, I'm obviously doing something wrong. I've got to work it out.
Yeah.
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 A week later, the other camera assistant pulls me aside, the B camera. She says to me, Dan, you are one of the best camera assistants, trainees, sorry, that I've ever worked with.
Oh my goodness.
You are doing a fantastic job.
Wow.
And I was like, hold on.
It was only last week.
Yeah.
that I was told I'm not
Don't worry
doing
about
well.
that guy.
But I think
Wow.
what I hear in that is that
Yeah.
like you gave a shit about wanting to do it right. You were in the place you wanted to get to, or
Yeah.
like you saw, I'm a part of this now. I've got to make this work, and this
Yeah.
dickhead bloody slammed you.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So it's, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, you had to have a thick skin.
Yeah.
Because, and I think you still do, because it moves at the film industry and films I'm talking about, films and TV drama move at such rapid rates, and there's so much money involved.
Yeah.
That it moves along. And
The environment.
You've got to keep up.
Yeah, the
because-
environment on set, right? I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you about that. What is the atmosphere like? And a lot of students or people aspiring to jump into the film industry think it's just so creative, and you've got such time to think through all of these creative ideas and
Yeah.
test things.
They're
and-
called unicorn projects. They don't come along.
yeah.
Or
in the
ones you do, or personal projects that don't pay.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Well, going back, kind of like, I had a fantastic lecturer, a producing lecturer at TAFE, who said, either you have, if you don't have the money, you need time, but if you don't have time, you need the money.
Yeah.
And it goes across a lot of things. So if you don't have the money, you need to be able to give yourself plenty of time to get your project done.
Yeah.
The thing is, on the flip side, when you start talking about Hollywood and stuff like that, they have plenty of money.
But it's got to
So you-
return a profit and as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true. But, and this is skipping way ahead, if I give you the example of some of the shows that I've worked on, something like the most recent one was Shogun for FX and Disney.
Love that show.
Yeah, they had, so it's a Japanese TV show. Mate,
Set in the
Ooh.
17th century,
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Japan, when England didn't really know about
Yeah,
Japan,
yeah.
and Portugal was using it as a really solid trade route, and so there's this. Oh man, I'm not going to get into that story.
Yeah.
It's just so good. I love that
Yeah.
show.
And you've been shooting on set in these locations?
No, well, we shot it all in Canada. It's all
Oh,
shot in
wow.
Vancouver.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
so,
pretty epic.
Yeah.
It looks like
Um,
Japan.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of Vancouver with its overcast, grey, kind of soft light
Yeah.
that you could achieve. You're never fighting direct sunlight, and yeah, you can definitely cheat a lot of that lighting.
Mm.
Like Vancouver's got really soft, beautiful lighting. The weather's miserable,
Mm.
but when it comes to like photography and stuff like that, it's very kind.
Mm.
But they had plenty of money, and they wanted to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, nice.
So they were happy in both aspects.
It
Wow.
needed to be
They
thorough.
needed to work.
Yeah.
And another example, I didn't work on another example is the Lord of the Rings TV series from Amazon.
Yeah.
They threw so much money
So
at that
much.
and so much time. And you just, you look at that result and it's a phenomenal TV series. They were phenomenal movies.
Yeah.
So that's that other side of it. So getting sidetracked.
Right. So, you were an attachment on a feature in Perth. What happened after that?
So, from there, the B camera team took me under their wing.
The nice
And-
one.
Yeah. Well, the A camera team was from Sydney.
Ah, yeah.
That's another story. And I did a couple of local projects, which was really good. A TV series up north, a TV series and a feature film up north. A great little Indigenous film called Satellite Boy,
Nice.
which I did with the great DP Jeffrey Simpson.
Mhm.
For anyone that wants to look up his CV and name, he's a fantastic cinematographer. And that was amazing. Just these experiences that I got as now a second AC,
Mm.
but into the digital world. So I got because TAFE trained me with film, I got to spend a little bit of time with film, but at that time, film was dying, unfortunately.
Mm.
There was no, I think Melbourne, Perth didn't have a lab.
Yeah.
So whenever we shot film, we had to send it to Melbourne or Sydney. And so we would shoot commercials. And so that was the only time I ever got to load. So I was actually loading film.
Yep.
And that's nerve-wracking as it is.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Once it's if you know about film, once it's shot, you can't expose it to sunlight, but you have to get it out of the
Canister.
out of the case.
The case,
Yeah,
Ah!
and there was a time I was working with on a road safety commercial in Perth because Perth had a really healthy commercial industry. We
Oh,
shoot
yeah.
our own commercials, so we'd shoot, road safety stuff and IKEA commercials and Coke and Red Rooster and all those. We had our own shoot, and then and probably another podcast with the marketing and the advertising marketing in
Yeah.
Perth.
Yep.
They're so strong and they're
Yeah.
so good over there.
It's
Yeah, right.
standalone.
That-
It's standalone, isn't it? They
It's-
kind of
yeah.
they have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're
self-reliant on a
like,
lot of-
they're very competitive on the national market. Well, they were 20 years ago.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So the commercial industry was really strong. So we're out in the boiling heat in Perth, and we're shooting some motorbike road safety accident thing, and we'd finished a roll, so 400 feet of film,
Yeah.
and I take it back to my first AC had this like horse float
Oh yeah.
kind of trailer, and
Yep.
in that was we had the benches for the cameras and all the storage stuff, and then he had a little dark room, so you could essentially just lock yourself in this little dark room. So I put myself in this dark room. It is so hot in there.
Oh.
And
It'd
can I
be-
also add some information here that'll help build up the image in people's minds? So
Yeah.
you've got a horse cart with a couple of segments in there, benches and whatnot, and a dark room. It's not like a dark room with the red light because the red at this
No,
stage
no,
it has to be complete
It's
black.
Yeah,
And how big's this room? Like smaller than a shower? The size of a shower?
yeah, the size of a shower. Yeah,
So you lock
Yeah.
yourself into this room
Yeah.
in the absolute complete
Yeah.
black.
And the
It's
heat
like-
outside.
Heat outside,
Yeah.
cooking you from the. So
Yeah.
and now
It's
tell
hot.
me what happened next.
Yeah. So I'm in there, and I mean, I'm pretty confident with. I was pretty confident at the time with loading film, and so I'd opened the canister. I'd got all my stuff. You have to, you pretty much before you open the canister in the light, you'll lay out all your equipment on the desk. You
Yep.
always put it in the same position.
Yes.
There's one thing about camera assisting and going forward is like you have your procedures, you have your structure, you stick with it.
Yep.
It makes you a really good assistant.
Yep.
It makes it, it's transferable across
Yeah.
many industries.
Well, it sure is.
But camera especially is important, especially when you're dealing with film. So I had my, and it's hot, and close in, and I'm in there, and I open it up, and I feel it. And as I pick it up, so what you do is you pinch your finger in the, I'm forgetting all the
spool?
jargon, in the center of
it?
it, the spool, thank you. And then your thumb on the edge, but at the edge of the filament. But as I picked it up, it loosened, and the spool unraveled. It just burst.
Oh!
And it was like an explosion of film. It just went, I felt it puff up.
Oh.
And I was like, oh. And then I could feel it
everywhere.
everywhere.
No.
Like I just put my hands.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'm waving my hands around at the
400
moment.
feet of
Yeah.
film.
I'm waving on my hand. I can
Unspooled.
feel it. I'm here. It's, of a
It's
commercial.
everywhere.
It's everywhere. And I was like, oh my God. So, and I'm sweating. And then all of a sudden there's this bang, bang, bang on the horse float, on the trailer. And they're like, we've got to move the trailer. We want to shoot here next. I'm
Oh,
like, okay, hold on.
oh no! Did
And
you?
I'm trying to wheel it in, but to be quite honest, I've never done it before.
Oh no!
So I just So
Did you
in a panic,
actually
in
contain
a
it?
panic mode? Yeah, there's a cooler, an esky underneath,
Oh, good.
where I kept the film and I got it all in there, being very delicate with it, and shut it. And I just went,
Pressure
and then
moment there.
walked out and closed the door and told my focus puller, who was not impressed, understandably, went in there and fixed it.
Oh wow!
And then he's like, you need to tell the director and the DP what's happened. I was like, oh, you need to tell them because
If it shows up
Yeah,
and it's been
yeah,
exposed, they
yeah,
need to know.
they'll see it. And if anything, it
Or
could
there's
be-
your thumbprints all over it.
well, that's probably, yeah.
And what
The fogging.
happens is if the light hits it,
Yeah.
it turns to just
Yeah,
nothing.
so you can get what's called like fogging or light leak, and which is could be streaks across the film. It
Yep.
could be and so I admitted, took responsibility, which you have to, 100%.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was a hard pill to swallow because I got an absolute berating from my focus puller about panicking.
Uh-huh.
But I felt like I went through the points and
Yeah.
kept the film safe. And
Yeah, yeah.
long story short, the film was fine.
Ah,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
No
Got the
major
report
fallout.
back. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
That's good.
But that was
that's
but
intense.
you kind of reflect and you learn from that. But that was almost one of my last times I worked with film, because then it turned digital. And after I'd done my number of shows in WA, I teamed up with a focus puller and a DP who were from Sydney, and they took me to Sydney. And I guess it's
And you moved. You
and I
moved to
just
Sydney.
moved. Yeah, it's
Wow.
about taking your opportunities.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to move away from Perth because Perth is so small, and I was lucky enough because of how I found myself in that first feature that it just went, okay, there was a gap in the market now for you. You can take it.
Great.
And that was it. That was like, okay, that's the first opportunity. Keep it. And then the second opportunity is moving to Sydney, which then involved, okay, we're not shooting in Sydney anymore. Let's go to Melbourne. And I was like, yep, let's go. I was ready to go. I was only, well, at the time, I would have been only about 23, 24.
Yeah, having a great time, city hopping, working
Yeah.
places, and
Yeah,
seeing cool things.
yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, and then I love Melbourne. So I stayed in Melbourne and did a few TV series, and that's when I started to become training more as a focus puller.
Right.
So the guy that took me under the wing was very like hands off. He would let me do a lot of stuff, and we'd be shooting on a series, and he was a very good focus puller. He taught me a lot to do with framing and distances and stuff like that, and like so with a focus puller, distances are very important.
Yeah. How
so a
far
lot-
is your subject away from
Yeah.
the lens?
Yeah, because a lot of the time people don't know what you do or where you are until the image goes soft.
Yeah, and they're
go,
like, "Where's
"Oh."
the focus
And
puller?"
they go, oh, why's that? What's happening there? Oh, someone's controlling that. There's some directors that wouldn't have a clue.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
Yeah, like, oh, what happened then? What do you think happened then?
Yeah, we missed the
actor-
focus.
Yeah, I missed the focus because the actor did something different, or something happened, or like
I
it's
just sneezed.
hard.
It's like, wow, that really snapped to
Yeah.
like a blur there. Yeah, sorry guys. Had to
But he
sneeze.
was very good. The guy that I kind of trained under for a while. He would sit on the camera next to the operator, and you would have this little device called a follow focus, which would connect to the lens via a cog, and so you wouldn't actually have to touch the lens. You'd be touching this follow focus that would then turn the wheel. So if you throw forward, you would, it's a whole nother lesson. But
No, this is good because when we say focus pullers, there'll be still plenty of people listening going, "I actually don't know what that looks like."
Yeah, okay. So the lens is manual. Like a lot of people know it. This is
So
this
in
is
the
teaching.
in the professional industries of shooting films, it's not autofocus on
No.
and set and forget
never
like a lot of
autofocus.
exactly.
No.
So there's someone's very specific role is to make sure the subject is in focus at all times. Or you see the shots where the foreground is in focus and it pans across, and then the people way in the distance are in
Yeah.
focus. That long focus pull. There's
There's
someone
lots of different
manually
things.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of different things that you do, and there's intention behind all of it because
yeah.
it's what's in focus is what the audience, what the director, what the DOP wants the audience to focus on, and
Yeah.
what's it draws attention,
Yeah.
which is one of the biggest, most important things, especially when you're dealing with a really shallow
Yeah.
depth of field, which means there's only a little part of the frame, a little plane, short plane of space that's in focus.
Yeah.
And so you were responsible for keeping the actors or whatever was meant to be in focus focus.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right? Because I want to know how long before it became really intuitive. Like you look at it and you're like, you can see where they're about to move and you're moving with them, and it feels like your hand is like totally on it.
And this was the great thing about the kind of my mentor at the time. He taught me just the little things that people do
How to
when
be-
they talk
Oh.
and
to
when they
be-
move. And one
Yeah.
thing is, especially
Good
because
one.
we're sitting down, is when someone sits down and
Uh-huh.
when someone gets to go up, sits up. and
Oh
stands
yeah,
up.
do they go forward
So
first?
people will go forward and stand up. but they'll only ever go for as forward as their knees. So when you measure
Yes.
them,
Measure
Yeah.
someone's
knees.
sitting, you
Yeah.
measure their eyes, and then you just measure to the end of their knees. So generally, because you've done a rehearsal, you know they're going to stand up. So they go to stand up. I would throw straight to that mark that I took where their knees were.
Whoa.
And generally, that will be in focus.
Wow. So you have to
And-
be at one with focus. You know,
You
like
have to, you have to
be
be
your
one with the
craft.
actor's movements.
Be at one with the
Yeah.
actor's movements.
Yeah, because that's so. Like again, rehearsals are super important and stuff like that. But understanding people's movement is kind of really good, and watching them move.
And so one cool thing, explain how the distance kind of thing, because you would you have little tape measures that you'd measure from the lens to whatever?
Yeah, like 3 different tape measures. I have a hard tape measure, like
Yeah.
that steel tape measure.
Yeah.
I have a soft one, which is a fabric
Yeah.
kind of, which would run further.
Yeah.
And then I'd have what's called a disto, which is a laser. A laser one, which they a lot of the time.
2.5 meters.
Yeah, a lot of the time they use
That sounds
in
right.
the film.
And so the reason you do that is so that you know how far to turn the
Yeah, so
the
so
fo-
I essentially match it with what's on the lens. The lens will have all the markings on it.
Yeah.
And or most lenses are in feet.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
Yeah.
And that goes back to a lot of the lenses came out of Germany, and even though they're metric, they would go with feet. But yeah, it's I probably know my distances better in feet than I do in meters.
And how laser precision can you get without any devices? Like if we were to test you now,
Yeah.
the distance
I'm
from
a
where
bit
you're sitting to
sketchy
the
now.
wall, like if I fact checked you, how close do you reckon you can get it? Almost want to go
I
find
don't
a
know.
tape measure now
Yeah.
and test you out.
Yeah. Don't do that.
That's great.
One thing which was a little hack that I used to do was your arm spread.
Yes.
If you know exactly.
So I know I'm 6'3".
Yep.
So this is 6'3".
Yeah. Yeah.
Give it 6 foot. So I'd go and stand next to the camera. You know, you put your hand near the camera and you put your hand in and go, okay, straight away, you know that's 6 feet.
Nice.
So and then you'd work out and you go, okay, and then the actor's another 3 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's there or she's
Yeah.
there.
Epic.
And then you go, okay, that's great. So if they move forward, which is funny because it might only work with the video, but
Yeah.
the last show I did, I came up to the camera and they were framing up, and I came up and I just went to get my measurement, and I think it was the director that saw me, so I just put my hands up wide and then put them down, and the director was like, "What's wrong, Dan? You just look like you've just given up." Yeah, like
I don't know what to do.
I just
Big
walked in
shrug.
front. I walked in front of the camera, shrugged, and then walked up. And I was like, "Oh no, I was getting my measurements."
I'm getting my measurement. That's
Yeah.
so good.
So and you would do things like you would measure a room, but there's also you would put marks down for actors. So if an actor moved from there across the room, you would put these little marks down.
Yeah, so they know.
And they know where to stop.
Where
The
to stop.
operator can frame and get good framing.
Yep.
You know,
And you
then
would put
I
those
know the
down?
distances.
Like that's your job as the focus pull, or in conjunction with another person.
Yeah, in conjunction with my second AC.
Yep.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so they would put the marks down. I would run a tape measure out, and then mark those. If the camera was moving, you'd mark the camera. If the operator was handheld, you'd mark the operator where they were, and if they
Love it.
moved, yeah. So you always had this gauge of distance.
Yeah.
Now, it still happens, and it's a good discipline to have. And if anyone that wants to be a focus puller and train to be a focus puller, the distancing is an important thing. But a lot of us have got our heads buried into monitors now because we have 4K monitors and we
Yeah.
have remote focuses. Like
Yeah.
I haven't used a focus on a camera for something like 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
And they're plugged into the camera, and you press a button, and you've got it all set out, or
Well, the cogs still turn by a remote
There's
motor.
motors.
yep,
Yeah,
gotcha.
So-
it's all motors, it's all RF.
Yeah.
And I sit away from the camera.
Yeah.
And it allows me to get into better positions to see people moving and walking. So I'm up next to the
yeah,
camera.
true.
I
Yeah.
can be on profile, so I can gauge distances better.
Oh, that's cool.
But then with the monitors and shallow depth of field is you have inches sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's like, oh, excuse me, do you want the left eye or the right eye in focus?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
wild.
you know,
Yeah.
and a
Whoa.
part of the focus puller is you can make that creative decision yourself,
Wow.
and you start becoming, once you hit becoming a focus puller, you start getting into that creative choice realm of the film and television.
So it starts opening up there.
Yeah.
You hinted earlier on about some stories. You
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
already
yeah,
had a
yeah.
bit of a yarn, the two of you.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to ask Caleb the question of which one do you want him to, which one do you think would be good for our audience?
Look,
you know?
Dan's told me a couple, but I wanna hear off the top of your head, Dan. Just reel off a few of the projects you've worked on that, and how many, and maybe some that people would know, and that might trigger some behind the scenes stories of
I want
maybe some crazy,
something crazy.
some really ambitious shot or something went
expose.
wrong.
Expose.
Some director had no idea what was possible and just went crazy.
Okay. Well,
You've dropped Shogun, which is like
Yeah,
a very recentish release on Disney Plus. I think it is. You can
Disney Plus here.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
view that.
Yeah.
That was freaking epic. I love that. What are some other Have you got any BTS stories of that, and what are some of the other like recognizable projects?
Shogun. There was a episode 4, I think, or maybe episode 3. I can't remember really when they're ambushed at night
Yeah.
on the hillside.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler. Yeah, if you haven't watched it by now, then
yeah, yeah.
it's not really a
your,
spoiler.
Your fault.
Yeah, yeah. That when we started, that was a 3-day scene. So
Wow.
It was at night.
Yeah.
So we spent 3 nights there, and then second unit actually came in and did another couple of nights. But it was in November or December, so it's in the middle of winter
Yeah.
for Vancouver.
Yeah.
And they coined a new term, the weather bureau at the time, for what was about to happen, the weather event. They called it an atmospheric river. And it's essentially there was a river in the sky above Vancouver, and it was dumping on us for 3 days.
Oh, whoa.
Now,
Snow, obviously.
No, rain.
No, rain.
Sorry, rain.
Doesn't
not
Vancouver snow?
It does, but that was a little too early, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Epic.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
just pouring down rain.
So, and it was funny because they always used to say, that in pre-production they said, well, we can't really shoot in rain because the wigs and the costumes are so precious
Yeah.
that they'll just be destroyed in the rain.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, anyway.
And
not-
so
not
you
true.
you were shooting for 3 nights
So
in the rain.
we bump into this. We're in the side of a mountain, so it's a
Yeah.
really hard bump in. The trucks are in these really up these dirt tracks.
Oh,
These
yeah.
massive camera trucks, lighting, gripping, and then it's like up this super steep hill, and so you get all that equipment up. It takes hours to get all the equipment up.
And what's
And
the
it's-
shot? Like an army? What's going to be the shot
so
that you're trying to
the
get?
shot is it's essentially a goat trail, like this
Goat
tiny little
trail.
trail with like a small army going down it.
Yeah.
Like samurais and the horses.
Like single file.
Yeah, single file down, kind of single file. Yeah, down this little goat track, and so when we bump in, it's dry, like it's fine, it's sprinkling, it's raining, but by the time we get to about 2 or 3 in the morning, it is just mud.
Oh boy.
Rain. We can't move the carts anymore. The trolleys that we work off for the cameras are we're stuck, we're bogged. There's a crane in there, so a techno crane, which is like a telescopic arm with a remote head with the camera on the top, which is on what's called a badger, which
Yeah.
is essentially
Tracks?
like tracks
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that, on a slightly easier day would get in there, but when it's like this much mud,
Whoa.
Like a mini train track kind of thing.
yeah, like a tank.
Yeah.
like
A
those tracks on
tank.
a tank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but miniature. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's in the forest as well.
Oh boy.
Like, and so we're shooting 3 cameras. It is pouring rain. You cannot hear yourself think.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we're trying to.
And you're actually going
we
ahead
just
with.
keep going. You've got
Oh.
the director and the DP just barking like where to put cameras, and then we're seeing cameras in shot, and like we're like, oh, we can't be there, and you can't be there, and you can't shoot here, and like.
How
and
many
meanwhile, you got the-
shots were you getting through per hour? Like,
I don't know. We were maybe one set up every couple hours,
whoa,
but it was still so much. It was just chaos,
wow.
and you're just trying to. And it's very stressful for lighting and camera because you're dealing with electronics,
Yeah,
and
you can't get
you-
them wet.
yeah, and the lenses, and we had these
Yeah.
amazing Hawk branded lenses, which were just stunning lenses. They're like a lot to do with how beautiful
Mm.
that series looks like, along with the lighting and stuff from the cinematographers.
Yeah.
Um,
Those lenses, like
The lenses
How
were
if I want to go out and buy one of those
Oh.
lenses and chuck it on my FX6.
20 grand plus?
no,
No, we're
50,
talking
50,
like
60 grand each.
Whoa.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
For a lens,
and,
yeah,
yeah,
crazy.
and you want a set of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cheeky half
Yeah.
a mil, no
Yeah,
worries.
2 cents.
And so tell me what happened with this. You bogged,
And
you ran
so-
your knees in mud and
Yeah.
rain and water, and like, did you got the shot? Did you get the shot?
We got shots.
Yeah.
we got plenty of shots.
Yep.
But again, with Shogun, it was no compromise. And
Yep.
second unit came back. So a completely different unit with 2 more cameras
Different
came back
crew.
and did
Mm.
different crew, did stunts. Because I was at that time I
Oh,
was a part of
wow.
main unit.
So
and-
traditionally, second unit gets pickup shots that were like
Yeah.
missed, or they
yeah, they'll
out of
clean up.
schedule, off schedule kind
Yeah.
of things that weren't got. They come in just so that the schedule can run smoothly.
They'll do action stuff.
Ah.
They'll clean up after a main unit. Sometimes you'll go into a scene knowing that you won't get half the stuff.
Yep.
And so you can concentrate on like the actors.
Yep.
And make sure you get the meat and potatoes. Essentially, you get the story, and then the second unit will come in and get, say, the action, especially for that scene.
Mhm.
There's so many horses and stuff like that.
And this is all like there's actual. How many people? How many actors and horses on set?
There would have been 50 extras, at least 50 extras with like 4 or 5. Well, no, it was probably 6 or 7 main crew.
Yeah.
Like including Cosmos and Anna, like the lead.
Yeah.
Hero was there as well because he's on horseback, I think.
And no one fell off a cliff.
No, one
Wow.
fell off a cliff.
Oh.
No cameras were destroyed.
Oh my goodness.
I had a horse chase me.
What?
They were getting pretty aggro.
I love
They
that.
were all getting
Dumb.
pretty aggro.
I bet they
and
were.
Everyone was pretty
Oh.
chaotic. And,
They're picking up on the energy of the crew
Yeah.
there,
Yeah,
aren't
they would
Yeah.
be.
yeah,
It just chases you.
yeah. It's just like I think wanted to kick something.
Yeah. Didn't get you though.
No, thank God. I would have got to go home early.
Wow.
So, and so we did it, and then we came back the next night.
Oh,
did it
to
again.
do it all again.
they? And it was still raining. Still the same
Yeah,
conditions.
it was worse, I think.
I love that.
Yeah.
And
That's full on.
that's the gig.
Yeah.
And like in
And then because second unit came in, I'm not sure if it was raining still, but then they had to build in rain towers
To match the.
to match it. Yeah, so then you bring that in.
oh,
I think that's what they had to do. I wasn't a part of it, but
oh, that's terrible.
I think I remember hearing them talk about that.
Oh man, that's
Um,
just so crazy. And so for power in that scenario, right? You've got massive generators.
Yeah, so they'll so in Canada there's an actual position called a Jenny operator, and they're for Shogun. I think we had 2 or 3 of them,
Yeah.
and they would set up the generators far enough away and then run 3-phase cable through the bush, which is kind of funny because you go wandering through the bush and you just come across all this power. You're like,
Whoa.
What?
yeah,
I mean, we're talking far enough away, like what, like hundreds of meters.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can't hear it.
Just through the, yeah. A lot of electric, a lot of like electric generators
Ah, yeah,
over
yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
silent generators.
Nice.
So they're not that.
They're not
they're
that bad.
It's
Yeah,
it's
but they're
quite
huge.
it's quite a daunting thing to learn that the videos we watch, like the movies we watch or the TV series that we watch on TV, you think it just appears on your screen.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And the amount of jobs and roles and the complexity of pulling it all together. So,
Yeah.
because I know just enough about it that it baffles me that
Yeah.
that it can be done.
Yeah.
The cool thing, and the reason I wanted to get you on this podcast episode is because there's a lot of young people that want to enter the film industry, and all of them go to film school. Most of them go to film school, or they're self-studying online through some course, and their idea is that I want to be an editor. I want to be a director. I want to be a DP, and their expectation of doing that is and I'm speaking from my own experience. You go to film school having a very limited understanding of what a big film set looks like, or a big TV set looks like, and you've got understanding of maybe 5 or 6 roles, but there are an innumerable amount of other roles. I mean, you'll see on the, you watch the credits at the end of a film and you're like, wow, there's so many people.
Yeah.
But you don't have that practical understanding of, look, I might just find my place as a completely different role that I didn't even know existed, right?
Yeah.
So before we get into other projects and stories, because I love those, what are some of the other random as roles that you would find on a show like Shogun that people wouldn't really expect to exist?
What's the one that surprises you the most? You're like, why? How is this a job?
Yeah.
Without slamming
Mine,
anyone.
focus puller.
You-
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. How is this? How? Well, most of them all make sense.
To you?
Yeah.
Pause
Yeah.
there. Pause there.
Sorry, mate. I'll let you marinate that story.
My crisis is going off on my phone.
All right. Sorry about that.
Right.
I think one of the roles that people might not realize the most is special effects.
Oh yeah.
It's a huge department. It's
Yep.
massive. Like, and they get to do a lot of fun stuff because they branch into, like, they do the simple things like they use this smoke machine to fog up a
Yep.
room.
A space. Yep.
Like, but then also they're in charge, and so I've worked. So this is like that might blur in Australian in the Australian film industry on who operates the hazer or the smoke
Yeah.
machine or
Yeah.
something like that. It could be the grips or the lighting, but it's
There's a crew who
There's-
focus on special effects.
yeah, in Canada it's a department, but they use so. There's a film that I just did in Melbourne called The Rising, which is the shark movie that I talked to you about.
Yes.
But they ran fans. Now, I'm not just talking about these little pedestal fans. These had V8 engines on the back of them.
What?
Yeah,
It needed to be windy.
hurricane. It had
Yeah.
to be a hurricane.
Whoa.
As soon as those things turned on, you couldn't hear yourself anymore.
Whoa.
But these guys, so they would run also the blood effects. So they had these incredible little pressure valve things, so they could be out of the water for the shark stuff and pump this massive amount of blood into the water instantly,
Whoa.
as if someone's just been taken away by a shark.
Wow.
So making special effects also go into makeup, special effects makeup and stuff
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
And so that
Wounds and
wounds and that. But then they also do the explosions.
Yeah.
So these guys are quite the jack of a lot of different trades and are also heavy on safety and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
did some in Canada, I worked on a lot of second units, on a lot of action units.
Yeah.
And I worked with some phenomenal special effects crews. Just so smart and so cool and just want to blow things up.
Yeah.
Sounds like the engineers in the army.
So,
They just want to blow things up.
Yeah. So, but they're a big department.
Yeah.
And I don't think people see that as an avenue into the. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I want to go in the film industry. I need to be in these set 5,
Yeah.
6 roles, which generally a lot of film schools
Yeah.
offer.
Or you can learn how to run a generator and a lot of cables out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a completely outside of the.
But that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Jenny op. No one knows about Jenny operators.
So no one knows
Yeah.
about Jenny.
Yeah.
But special
no,
effects.
Jenny.
When you said special effects, I went straight to like digital special effects, and then but
That's-
real life, the things that like
Yeah.
physically making a scene
Yeah.
happen,
Yeah.
and the special effects of that would be quite interesting.
So, yeah, so I did one of my first jobs in Canada when I went over there. I worked on the second unit of the Power Rangers movie.
Yes.
No, yeah,
So
okay,
again,
sick.
yes, like
I love
tick,
that.
yeah, childhood dream.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And we went out to this country town in Canada, well, in British Columbia, the province that Vancouver's in, called Kamloops. And we pretty much took over the town because pretty much what happens is these monsters come into this town because that's where all the kids live and
Yeah.
the Angel Grove or something like that. And these monsters start destroying the town and they get in their robots and come and stop them.
Yep. Yep.
And so obviously when we shoot, the visual effects are the monsters and the robots, but everything else is practical.
Yeah.
So when the robot gets pushed over and lands on a car, we flip the car. So pretty much visual effects have what's called a previs, which is essentially a storyboard which is got all the animation in it. So you can kind of look at this previs and see, okay, this is how tall the robot is. So as a camera operator, you go, okay, I have to frame this much because I have to frame this high above this person because that's how tall this monster is.
And
Then he comes up and he
that's good.
flips the car. So, okay, so the car, and then we start getting practical again. The car's going to flip here. So the car's going to flip here. So I have to pan with it.
Yep.
Same with the focus puller. I have to pull focus with it. Otherwise, it could, the likelihood of it,
Yeah.
going out of shot and stuff like that. And so then we would set up all these little stunt cameras. Like we'd put cameras in crash housings, which are pretty much protective boxes around the
Close to the action.
really close to the tire.
Yep.
So that when it flips, it lands right in front of the camera. So they cut to it really quickly. So that in the movie, it's 4 or 5 shots in like 2 seconds
Yeah.
with the monster in it and everything. But all that is all practical. So we spend half a day flipping this car, setting these
Sweet.
camera angles up, and doing essentially cool stuff.
I love that because it's another complexity of heavy visual effects films that you, as the crew on the ground, you are framing for something that's not there. You've got tools, the previs to help, but you have to visualize in your mind's eye in this frame. Where's this digital visual effect going to go?
Yeah. And so that's why that kind of pre-planning is really important from the visual effects team. And then you have the special effects team coming in and, tipping over traffic poles and and then people running, and then there's debris being thrown, it'll be foam blocks, but it looks like rocks and stuff like that. And
Sparks
And so-
flying.
In Power Rangers, you kind of know they're foam blocks, right?
Yeah.
And like the explosion is like very much
In
a
that-
firework from this thing.
Yeah.
Like it kind of has
Yeah.
that vibe. Is
Yeah.
that?
No,
And
I'm
spe-
talking about the real movie. The movie.
Oh, I'm thinking like the
The
vintage
TV,
one.
yeah.
Oh, the TV. Yeah, I'm thinking
You're
more
thinking
of
about
the
the
TV.
TV series.
Yeah.
Where
yeah.
it kind of
Dan's
looks
not
like
that old.
When they, I watched that when I was 8.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's no, they made a movie. They made a movie 8 years ago.
Oh, I obviously haven't seen it because
Yeah.
it must have stepped up
Yeah.
a fair bit from.
Oh yeah. I remember when it came out, but no, I didn't get along to see that one. I missed it.
Yeah.
Did I miss much?
No,
Was
I
it
think
good?
I think it was relatively good.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
I
I
think a good
enjoyed it.
nostalgic experience.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
it.
it was good.
Well, that's
Um,
on the
and
list
again,
then.
Like we did some great fight scenes in that.
Yeah.
Like, all the Power Rangers on wires
Cool.
and
Yeah.
getting kicked and
That's yeah.
but yeah, special effects I think it's a yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, it's one of those
Um,
cool roles that
yeah.
you wouldn't expect to exist. But as you said before, you need a lot of different skills. Like you might need demolitions and explosives training. You would need
Or if you
electrical. You need
if you get that high up, yeah,
yeah.
I've got a we're coming towards the end of the episode, and I was wondering about we've talked about this really complex. You've just mapped out this really complex creative thing. Like we see this creative output, and we've just learned about how freaking complicated it is. And I'm thinking that communication between teams and the way that it all comes together is really important, like the coordination of it all.
Yeah.
And I was kind of wondering if you had what you'd noticed about that. Like how does it actually work, or what's the takeaway other industries could take from how this behemoth of an industry works at this breakneck speed? Maybe you're like, oh, big question. Where am I going to go with this?
Well, I've thought about this. I have thought about this. It is as creative as the professional film and television industry is and stuff like that. The like time management, communication, collaboration is so important for the running of these things. Like, and people shouldn't underestimate developing and having a strong set of like soft skills.
Yeah.
Which now I think are called more like power skills
Yeah.
of that collaboration, problem solving.
Yeah.
Problem solving is massive. What makes a really good camera assistant is to be able to stay calm and think laterally and problem solve, because you can know all the technical skills, but then all of a sudden if the camera doesn't work, you need to be able to fix it, and you need to be able to step up and actually be able to problem solve. And I think that is a really underestimated skill across a lot of industries. I think it is, like, soft skills are definitely the big thing in demand now. Like I can teach someone to wrangle cable. If I get a trainee, I can teach them to wrangle cable. I can, show them certain, what equipment is. But if they don't have those basic communication and time management, being able to rock up on set and know priorities and be able to create kind of like structures for themselves, and it's crucial. And that's crucial to the running of a good film set. You need directors that are good communicators. That can be a massive downfall to a lot of shows.
And mix of verbal and written and planned and dimension. Like what's the matrix of communication on set or pre-set? Is it with a megaphone yelling out, or is it you got to do your research and read up on all the shots?
Well, it's funny because name drop. When I worked with James Gunn on Peacemaker, the TV series, he had a megaphone, but he talked constantly.
Did he?
Right? Just constant verbal diarrhea, which is amazing. Firstly, he's a very funny man. He's a very creative man.
Yeah.
Yes.
But his constant talk just kept you in the loop.
Wow.
You just knew exactly what he was thinking.
Wow.
And you knew exactly what he wanted.
Wow.
The issue that I have, especially as someone that's coming technically, sometimes I need a yes or no.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, which I struggle with, people think it's collaborative when they're like, oh, what do you think? Or sometimes I don't want that.
Yeah, you don't need to be brought in.
You are the leader. I need you to tell me what you envision and what you see.
Yeah.
If you don't know that, then that's fine. Honesty is a big thing as well.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like we can't expect it. Like you can't expect everyone to know everything. It's also why directors or producers and others surround themselves with good people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You surround them with people that make you stronger.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to pick up on one thing you mentioned there is the the skills, those soft skills, power skills. I like calling them that.
Yeah.
are transferable across different industries, right? And the ones that I've seen and had a little bit of a insight into, it it's like the chess analogy. If you're able to play 5 moves ahead, if you're able to see what's going to happen and prepare yourself now to make that possible or achievable or more efficient, that is one of the hugest overarching skills that mean that you'll be able to solve the problems before they exist. You'll be able to mitigate the risks before they happen, but you'll be prepared when someone calls on you to say, hey, I need this to happen. You can say, look, I've already done it. That's so good. We're already ready for that. There's the other industries that come to mind is hospitality. When you're on the floor or in a kitchen, you need to be anticipating what is coming up next and looking for work when someone hasn't told you what to do. Like the army, making sure that you're taking the initiative and you know what the intent is of the leader, and you're able to go, what does that mean to me, and what can I do to contribute to that outcome? I'm never going to be standing around
as an observer.
I'm not here to look at what everyone else is doing. I'm here to work out what do I need to do, not now, but what do I need to do in 30 minutes? What needs to be achieved in an hour, and what do I need to do now that means that can be possible?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Soft skills. Come on.
Yeah. Initiative.
Yep.
Initiative is massive, because you need that to stay ahead.
Yeah.
With what you're doing.
And that engages you in the work, right? Because you're no longer playing your little role and someone's going to tell me what to do and then I'll do it. You're looking at the whoever's up the chain in whatever department you're in, and you're saying, what's their priority?
Yeah.
How can I, what cable are they going to need next? Or what they're probably, I'm looking at this thing and going, look, if I was doing their job, I can see they might need a light here, or I can see they're going to run into an issue down here.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to prep myself with the bits that they're going to need before they know they need them.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing, because I was talking to someone else about this before, because going back to the gripping department, I always noticed that whenever the grips would bring up a light or something, over the radio they would say, okay, I need this light, I need a stand, I need a cable, I need the DMX, which is the control unit to control it, and I need a sandbag. I was like, that's really weird, because so you say everything. Why don't you just say the light? Why do you say all the items? And they were like, well, it's just so they know to bring it all. I'm like, yeah, but they've been doing it long enough, haven't they? Shouldn't they know? Because in the camera department, my expectations are, when I say 50 mil, I get the 50 mil, but I also get everything that I need with that lens. And a lot of the time it could be a different matte box that goes in the front.
Yeah.
I might have to change a filter because of the lens I've put on. I might have to change a cog for my follow focus. That is an expectation I put on my second, that they know all that, and I don't have to tell them.
Yeah.
Right? Where the gripping department is just like, no, we label it all, because it comes from 4 different people. So they have 4 different people rock up.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And they all know what they're getting.
Right. Wow.
Someone's the cable person, someone's the light stand person.
Yeah, and I thought it was just like, oh, you're just treating them like
monkeys.
Which, you can argue that.
So that's how you work at that fast pace.
But that's how they get a much larger infrastructure, compared to just a lens, a lot quicker than.
Yeah,
you
because
probably would,
the time saved is you're not going to have you're not going to have the bits come up and have someone need to go back to get something that wasn't brought.
Yeah, and there's only ever usually one person that will bring me the equipment, because they can, because I've only got one assistant. A lot of the lighting and the gripping people have numerous assistants.
Yep.
So again, that's a structure in place, a communication that is in place that works exceptionally well. For speed and time, and it all comes down to time and money and
Hey, Dan, it's been great to have you on Country Creatives. It's been a fun chat.
I love it. I love diving into this thing, and I'm just so excited, because I think if I was 14, 15, 16, 17 again, I would have just frothed listening to this and going, oh, wow, I'm getting the inside. I'm like, what do I need to do to get into this industry, and what kind of skills do I need to have that's transferable? So I've really loved this. I
Hope
think
I
it'll be.
answered something.
You did.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this will be super valuable for a lot of people and really interesting for all the rest.
Yeah, hope so. What's the before we wrap up? Who do you work for? Do you have your own company or
No, I'm
you
completely freelance.
completely freelance?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yep. And
yeah.
so you just get called in by shooting crews and agencies or whoever to.
Yeah, by production companies.
Production
and that way
companies.
I've like, because I've worked with Apple, Amazon, Disney, Netflix, all of them. And
Crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you just hop from one to another. And
The key point there probably is building relationships within those production companies, right? And you work with someone and they enjoy working with you, and you're kind of adding these people in your network. So when they've got a job, they're like, yeah, Dan's my man.
yeah,
you build a crew around a project, right?
yeah. And networking's good. You know, go to your networking events. I mean, find it hard to network, but
Yeah.
it's something that you need to pursue. I know people cold call and cold email. You know, it can work sometimes. I'm not going to say that that's going to lead to work.
Yeah.
I think you
but-
just got to do what you got to do. You
but
know, everyone
Yeah.
has a different
You do
journey.
it, and you take your opportunities. That's the big thing. Is
Yeah.
opportunities. Yeah, you take opportunities.
And to wrap it up? What's the next thing we're going to see that you've been involved with? Something that you can, when this episode go out in a couple of weeks' time. So obviously you can't mention anything that maybe is in the pipeline if it's under an embargo. But what can you tell me? Is there anything? What would be the next big
the
thing?
next thing that will come out, which won't come out until August next year, is it was called The Rising. We shot it in Melbourne at Dockland Studio. This is the
Yes.
shark movie.
Yes.
It was called The Rising. It'll probably be called Beneath the Sea. No, Beneath the Storm. Sorry.
Beneath the Storm.
Beneath the Storm, August next year. Cinema release apparently. Just a proper shark.
Film.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
good. If we had 2 hours to speak, I'd get you to tell all those
Well,
stories
yeah.
because that was pretty hilarious. But hey, that's time for this episode. Dan, thanks, mate, so much
so.
for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was, good chat about it all
Cheers.
day.
Love it. That was
That's
awesome.
it.
Awesome. Thanks,
I'm
man.
gonna go to
Thanks,
the
Dan.
toilet again quickly. What are you up to? You've not got on a job at the moment, obviously. Do you have like big stints? You work for 6 months, hectic, and then have a break between?
No,
projects?
I'm teaching now.
Yeah,
I'm
whereabouts?
stepped away. I'm at a little town called Rushworth.
Yeah, I know. Rush.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I know, well,
I'm out there teaching